Somewhere in the last month, someone got you to do something you didn't actually want to do. Maybe you said yes to plans you dreaded. Maybe you apologized for something that wasn't your fault. Maybe you gave up an opinion you actually believed in just to keep the peace. You probably told yourself it was your choice, but the real answer is far stranger. Some part of that decision wasn't fully yours. It was shaped, quietly, by a pattern your brain was never built to detect. Manipulation doesn't look like manipulation while it's happening. That's the whole point of it. If it looked obvious, your brain would reject it instantly, the same way it rejects a snake shape coiled in the grass. So manipulation evolved to look like something else entirely. Concern, logic, love. It borrows the costume of normal human connection, and that's exactly why it works. Psychologist Robert Cialdini spent decades studying influence, and his core finding explains why manipulation is so hard to spot in the moment. The human brain runs on mental shortcuts, fast, automatic rules that let you make decisions without consciously analyzing every interaction. These shortcuts exist because thinking through every social situation from scratch would be exhausting. Most of the time, they protect you. Manipulators have simply learned which shortcuts to pull. Here's the first one: reciprocity. When someone does something for you, even something small, your brain registers a debt. You feel, almost physically, like you owe them. A manipulator can use this by offering something you never asked for, a favor, a compliment, and then later, when they ask for something far bigger, your brain still remembers the debt. You say yes, not because you evaluated the request, but because the imbalance felt uncomfortable to leave open. The second pattern is harder to notice because it doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like care. It's called love bombing, and it shows up as overwhelming affection or praise, delivered fast and early. Your brain interprets intense positive attention as a signal of safety. The problem is, that signal can be manufactured. Once trust is built quickly through excessive warmth, the same person can withdraw that warmth just as fast, and your brain, still wired to chase the feeling of safety it briefly had, will work harder to win it back. You end up earning approval that used to be given freely. The third pattern hides inside something that looks like vulnerability. It's sometimes called the victim card, and it works because human beings are wired with deep, important empathy circuits. When someone presents themselves as hurt or wronged, your instinct is to soften, to comfort, to stop pushing back. A manipulator can use this strategically, positioning themselves as the injured party the moment they're held accountable for something. Your empathy, the very thing that makes you a decent person, becomes the lever they pull to avoid consequences. You raise a legitimate concern, and instead of addressing it, the other person becomes visibly hurt. The conversation's entire shape changes. What started as you stating a need becomes you managing someone else's emotional state. What's striking about these three patterns is that none of them require the manipulator to be unusually clever. They require something simpler: repetition, timing, and an understanding of which automatic human responses can be triggered on command. Reciprocity exploits your sense of fairness. Love bombing exploits your need for safety. The victim card exploits your empathy. Every one of these is a normal, healthy part of being human turned against you. This is also why people who get manipulated are so often intelligent, empathetic, thoughtful people. Manipulation doesn't target weakness. It targets exactly the traits that make someone a good partner, friend, or colleague. The capacity to feel guilt, to extend trust, to want harmony. These aren't flaws. They're the cost of being a connected, caring person living among other people, some of whom will exploit that connection. It helps to understand why these shortcuts exist at all. For most of human history, you lived among people you saw every day, often for your entire life. In that world, trusting quickly wasn't naive, it was efficient. Reputation followed you everywhere, and deception had a short shelf life. That world no longer exists in the same way. You now form impressions of people in days instead of years, often through screens, with no community watching to keep anyone honest. The same trust shortcuts that once worked safely inside a tightly bonded tribe are now operating in a much larger, much less accountable world. And manipulators, knowingly or not, exploit that gap. Knowing these three patterns doesn't make you immune to them. Your brain will still run the same automatic shortcuts tomorrow, because those shortcuts are not bugs. They're features built over a long evolutionary history of needing to trust and bond with people quickly. But recognition changes something important. The next time you feel a debt you can't explain, an approval you're chasing too hard, or a guilt you can't quite place, you'll have a name for what's happening. And naming a pattern is the first step in choosing whether to follow it. So the next time something in a conversation makes you feel just slightly off, slightly smaller, slightly more uncertain of yourself than you were 5 minutes ago, pause. Ask what just happened, not what they said, but what you suddenly felt and why. You've been manipulated before, and you probably will be again. The difference now is that you'll know it while it's happening, not months later, looking back.